Delighted to be joined by Graham Jesty, who's Head of Electoral Services at Gosport Borough Council. How are you doing today, Graham?
I'm doing good, thank you, Mark.
Today we're going to be talking about Democracy Counts Limited, the electoral software services supplier. Now, you're a client, I believe a relatively new client of Democracy Counts. Presumably you've come over from a pre-existing supplier. So what were the main drivers behind that?
We moved across in September of last year, following some problems with our previous supplier at a number of elections and during the annual canvass, which meant that I didn't have any faith in the provision of their services and their software. And we'd raised numerous issues and concerns with them over the last number of years. And wasn't seeing any action or movement from them to resolve any of those issues. And they just kept carrying forward. So we undertook a tender exercise and moved across to Democracy Counts. And the whole process, from the initial discussions with them and outlining exactly what we were looking for, and then the migration and all the data checking and testing, and the go live was an awful lot smoother than I was anticipating.
I've heard this from other council representatives about previous suppliers before joining Democracy Counts. Without going into the actual specifics of the other suppliers, can you just tell me a bit more about some of the kinds of problems that an electoral services sort of representative such as yourself can experience and go through? And what it means to change over to another company that doesn't give you those kinds of headaches.
The previous company we've been using, they had many clients. We were just one voice, and Gosport is quite a small local authority, and we just didn't have any power in the issues that we were raising with them. Some of the issues we had was incorrect data being exported, or data being completely missed from exports. The reporting of the statistics after the election that we have to produce and provide to national bodies was completely incorrect and would take hours and hours to then correct and supply to the Electoral Commission or to the government. And in one of our last elections back in 2019, we had, the day before polling day, 3 software releases to fix problems with their system, which obviously doesn't give you any confidence that the registers and the information you give in your polling station staff for the following day are actually going to allow the right voters to be able to get their ballot papers and cast their votes, as they should all be able to in an open and fair democracy that we have here in the UK.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how that migration works from beginning to end?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, Democracy Counts have had a number of new clients over the last 12 months and are very versed and experienced in the whole process of taking any of the databases from other systems and converting them into a usable database for their electorate system. So we had to provide database files and backups from our previous legacy system. They then put it into their sausage machine, is how I used to think of it. They put it in at one end, it does all these bits and pieces in the middle, and they get a new clean database file that they can then import into their system. They then give that to us. We then start looking at electors and comparing the two systems to make sure things have gone across correctly. If they haven't, we were having daily calls with Democracy Counts migration, implementation and migration team to talk about these issues. They would then refine the process and then put the data back into their sausage machine to get it back out the other end and give us another version of the database. So we did about 3 or 4 of those in the process of about 3 months before we were happy and able to sign off the data processing through UAT to be able to have a live database on the 1st of September of last year.
What would you say the kind of reputation of Democracy Counts is in the wider electoral community?
Obviously, compared to some of the other systems, they are one of the new kids on the block, but obviously they've come with a very fresh and clean approach to customer service and problems and rectifying those issues. And I now feel that when I phone up their client care team with any questions or queries or problems, that they listen to me. And the other benefit that Democracy Counts brings is that they've got people that are very good with data. So if it's a data issue, they've got specialists that can deal with that. But they've also got on their client care team people that have been on my side of the fence. They've been electoral administrators and they've had to deliver elections for councils. So they understand exactly where their customers and their clients are coming from when they are raising these issues. And they give you feedback all the way through about whether or not there is a bug and when it's going to be fixed and who's going to be doing that and the timelines, or if it's a product upgrade or a added benefit stuff that you're looking for. That all gets logged and goes into their project refine process, and you get updates and get invited to testing and user groups on all of that. So I don't feel that I'm phoning up and just not getting anywhere with them, which is how I was feeling with our previous system. They keep us all in the loop, and we have very regular meetings with the senior managers there to talk about our client care calls and our tickets and where we are and how we're feeling. And it just seems one big family.
So it sounds as though the customer care aspect really makes a difference to somebody in your position.
It does. And obviously our legacy system had a very good customer care team, but obviously their hands were being tied by the people up above. And if you didn't have the clout as a big authority or shouting the loudest, then it felt like you were being ignored or stuck to the bottom of the pile, and we'll get to that as and when we can, which is not how Democracy Counts deal with any of the problems that I've raised since we went live with them back in September.
So what's the next big electoral challenge in the calendar for Gosport Borough Council that Democracy Counts is going to be helping you with?
Obviously, we've got the May 22 polls, which are our first all-out elections, as we've just undergone a boundary review. So all of our councillors are unfortunately having to resign from the council and get themselves all re-elected. And then just after that, it's all the election bill of 2023. So the voter ID, all the changes coming with postal and proxy voting, accessibility in polling stations, overseas electors. But I know Democracy Counts have already started on all of that work. And we're starting to have discussions with them about how the system will work for us when we have to deliver that next year.
I just want to say a huge thank you for joining me today and talking about Democracy Counts Limited. Thanks very much, Graham.
Not a problem. You're welcome, Mark.